little bit about recruitment, or the training piece. What are you going to tell these folks once you get them involved? And one thing that we've been finding is a lot of it's just the introduction stuff. Here, this is this. I remember when Marty first got hired at the library, and the librarian kept saying, I need your card, I need your card. Do you answer your cell phone? Like, it was all about the security of knowing someone was a call away. That's really what it was about. The other thing that you want to talk about is what the people know about autism spectrum disorder. We went to the board, wrote those ideas down. We just want to engage the natural supports in the discussion about what's to happen, about autism spectrum disorder. So there's some things that people are very intrigued by. And one is the numbers, how come there's so many? The second question we get is, how come there's so many males? So we just give them some basic statistics. You can't catch it, you warmed it. You ready? Go ahead. We heard about your special night. Yeah, thank you so much. Got a lot of
just
heart All right. So as far as some of the other things we try to do is we try to give them information about what they might see and things that they wouldn't understand. And so one of the clips that we found pretty helpful is the beginning of Rain Man when he's first being introduced to Tom Cruise and what that looks like. And some of the things that we really talk about is just sometimes the overreaction to the change. And then how personal property is valued, or almost to what looks like an obsessive point. One of the things that we found for a lot of our students was it's not necessarily about the property, it's more about the way the property gets organized. Does that make sense to anybody? So for Marty, it wasn't baseball cards, it was the organization of the baseball cards. It's what you do with those objects rather than the object itself. And then we also talk a little bit about idiosyncratic speech and what that might look like. So again, if you were working with somebody that did not have any characteristics like that, obviously you wouldn't show that clip. You'd only show it if there's things in there that you could help better explain certain behaviors. We really get into the big three. So the social, the communication, and the intense interest and repetitive behaviors. Most of the time what we're talking about with the social is the social mistakes that they could see and witness. And so you want to hit those pretty hard as far as what could happen here. Kelly and I always say you want to plan for a worst case scenario. So And we say WCS all the time, worst case scenario, how bad could this go? And then once you plan for that, everything else is really easy, right? As long as you're planning for worst case scenario. As far as the communication piece, really talk about verbal versus nonverbal, need to talk about high interest areas, and the fact that although you've listened to the 2 hours on the solar system, the person with autism might not be so interested in talking about what you're talking about. And for us, we talked a lot about swearing because it seemed to me that we had a lot of kids that swore. So I'm going to show you a clip from Adam and just show you about this high interest areas. Because when we say that, people are like, oh yeah, he has high interest. No. It's not an interest, it's a drive. It's what they're going to do.
Sorry you didn't come out with your friends.
No problem.
I get kind of overloaded. I have something to show you. Come in.
Oh,
You said you want to know more about space. Because it looks like this, people think of it as still, even though we know it's expanding. All parts of the universe are moving away from one another, most of them faster than the speed of light, except for...
nothing like faster than the speed of light.
Right. Nothing goes through space faster, but space itself. Do you know about the Big Bang?
Well, in the beginning,
The inflation theory says the Big Bang came from as little as a 20-pound chunk of space about 14 billion years ago that expanded to the size of the universe in 10 to the minus 39 seconds.
10 to the minus
A
30.
decimal point, 39 zeros, and then a 1. That's the fraction of a second in which the universe was formed. That's billions and billions of times faster than light.
Fast.
So, in the work that we've been doing with Project Search, they have a young man, and one of the things that we've been really trying to help them better understand is the word stalking is coming up quite frequently with this young man. And really, truly, is it, when you ask the question back to the person and you say, is this stalking? The answer typically is what? No. They don't have a way to call it something, they don't know what it is. And so one of the parts of my job is to help use different phrases. And so one of the things that I've been saying to them, or is it more difficult for him to enter into conversations? Does that make some more sense? Is it more difficult for him to enter into conversations? Because if I don't know how to enter the conversation with Aaron, and I'm standing right here, what does this look like? Does that make sense to everybody? So if you can reframe information so that people better understand it, you're going to be in a lot better place. And then we just talk a lot about the intents and interests. So then we talk about what strategies work with the person with autism, what they might see. Not that they have to implement the strategies, but what they might see within the workplace. So this happened to be Eric's when he was over at Target. We'll pass this around. We try to use a grayish color so it looks a little more adult-like. He just had so many things that came with him, like everything had to have a mini schedule within a schedule, and keeping all this stuff together was a nightmare. So this was our way in order to make sure that he had everything he needed, and so we can go ahead and pass it around if you want. And you'll see the rest of the stuff that we had built in. The visual color coding for the reshelving and putting the merchandise back. So everything that we did for Eric was color coded so we knew where he was supposed to be going and what part of the store. And then he had, again, mini schedules within schedules in order to support him. If there's going to be a communication system, what that would look like, how to use the communication system. We had to spend a lot of time at the horse farm with Ryan trying to teach Ryan's communication system because it was really kind of complicated in order for people to use. This is a self-management system, this one we're using with PJ. And again, not that they have to implement the systems, but they need to know what these systems are about. This happens to be Brian's work list, what he's got to do first, mid, and then what is low priority, because you can imagine for some kids, everything is equal. So for Brian, he needed to understand what he had to get done. We want to share that with the people that he's working with so that they understand it's being addressed. This is Brian's reminder list. It's updated about every week with, I think we're up to 11 pages now. Yeah, like you are not going to go and order purple scrubs. Do you know who wears purple scrubs at Troy Bowler? The surgeons, yeah. And so he ordered them online without his mom knowing. And he shows up and he wants to be a doctor. So he's walking around, no, you cannot order purple scrubs. So again, and so you see, like any time, why do you think they have no running or jumping? You could accidentally hurt someone. Why do you think they have that as a rule? He was running and jumping. So everything that Brian got himself involved in, they made sure that they had a rule for it. Do not enter rooms when the doors or curtains are closed. Can you imagine? He doesn't enter quietly either. It's kind of like Kramer, right? From Seinfeld, where he would know Brian's in the room when he's in the room. So it is do not enter room until room is empty and no patient is in the room. Why do you think there's certain red ones? Those seem to be the easiest ones to forget, like the TV watching. So he's in there helping clean up the rooms, and all of a sudden he gets stuck on a soap opera, and then an hour later everyone's like, where's Brian? He's watching TV in the room. So, all right. So one of the things when you read through the research that they haven't addressed is how do you do the ongoing problem solving? Because natural supports need a place to give you information about what is and what isn't happening. Like that whole thing with Drew Carey taking over from Bob Barker. That doesn't sound like a big deal to you guys until you are obsessed with Bob Barker. And then it's a huge deal, and it can cause problems on the work site. So case conferences is what we call it. It's a way where you can sit down with the staff and just have a real brief meeting about what is and what isn't working. So there's 3 ways you do it. Go talk about the positives, then any concerns, and then you go directly from the concerns to the brainstorm. And that's where we got that young lady from Dressburn who helped us better understand it was about the UPS man, is through a case conference. We do have case conference information sheets that we do share. That's just looking for any patterns or themes. And again, we use meeting mechanics in order to run these. And here's the outcome of the case conference, and then we share this with the manager, whoever else, whoever needs to see what these case conferences look like. So I have one of a student, so I'm going to show you what Jonathan's looks like. Jonathan's in middle school at this point. He's supported by about 6 or 7 other 12-year-olds. Jonathan has Asperger's. He is participating in the case conference. He's the one sitting where the camera can't see him. He has a lot of high interest areas. One is fear factor. So part of the way they help Jonathan is they let him talk about fear factor for the last 3 minutes of the case conference. Therefore, he'll sit through most of the case conference. Now, here's some of the issues you're going to hear addressed. Jonathan went through about a year where he was protesting using paper money. He found out that there were germs on paper money, and then he didn't want any part of it. So we're like, what about 20? Like, there's less people handling 20s. That's inappropriate. Like, nothing. We couldn't get past it. And what he was doing is he was bringing like 40 dimes to school. And then if you've ever been in a middle school, you know the long line is not for the lunch, it's for the a la carte where you can buy all the junk food. You know what I'm talking about? So you can imagine, in his hand, about 30 dimes. Gets all the way towards the front, and what happens almost every other day? Somebody hits his hand by accident, and coins go flying. Now, he's almost to the front, and then what happens to the other kids? They're thinking they're going to go around and, over his dead body. Are they going around? So he's screaming from the top. You just see the whole problem. Second thing they're going to talk about is they put a new soda machine within the school, and They weren't allowed to use it except for after school, so there was a plant back in the corner by where they put the soda machine, like a fake plant just to dress it up, and he would hide behind the fake plant. And he would write down all the names of the kids that were using the soda machine when they shouldn't be using the soda machine. So we'll have you take a look at this. And remember, some of these kids have known this kid for a while. They've been together quite some time. Oh, and I should have told that. Usually there's just one person in a case conference, but there's a second person in there, and her name's Corinne. You can't really see her, but Pam, the person that's facilitating this, is talking to, that's his caseload teacher.
And the reason why I wanted Ms. Pizzoli here is because when we met as a group a couple of weeks ago, there were some items on here that the group thought that you would be critical in helping us solve. One, there were issues in the cafeteria, quite a few surrounding. Someone identified that Jonathan was laughing out loud in class and he wasn't stopping. He had too much money, all kinds of small coins. Takes too long deciding what to order. He's a rule buster about the pop machine, and some teasing at lunch. Can the group remember what did we think that Mrs. Pizzoli, how she could help us? I have a lunch menu as a okay, perfect. And locker, and that's for the month. And yes, everyone, the teacher can switch the coins for like dollar bills and so.
Yes, I think. I'll start with smart card, but I never had
Okay. How about what else? Mrs. Pizzoli, does this seem feasible?
That sounds perfect.
Okay.
You kind of decide what, maybe Jonathan, what you want to eat ahead of time, so you know right away not to think about it.
So it's really hard to hear Jonathan, but he was basically, when this kid said we could change the coins in for dollar bills, that wasn't going to happen. I think that's exactly his verbatim. That's not going to happen. So, all right, so move this ahead. Now go from middle school and now go into the adult world. So Marty was at ETA for 5 years. We had an entire plan for Marty when he was there. So it was all organized like this, who your primary contacts, who your natural supports are. And then we would send somebody down from our staff, and we just rotated people in until they told us, don't come back because we don't need your help. They found us really useless, is what they didn't say that about us, but we were pretty useless because we weren't there. We didn't know how to do this stuff. So then what we did is we just had a communication log that kind of went back and forth if there was any kind of things that came up that we were unsure of. And then we also had a timesheet for the workers from Clarkston, not necessarily for Marty, because he used the regular. Now here's the interesting part. The only time I ever got a call for support for Marty was he was the kid that they called and said that he was assaulting the vending machines. And it was our fault. We had never taught Marty. We hadn't had money. And this kid was making about 38 grand a year. And all of a sudden he's making money hand over fist. And what would happen is he would bring money in, and then no one ever told him that he couldn't, so he would just go to the vending machines. Well, literally, when we got down there was a stack of chips, candy bars. It was this high in the desk next to him, and all the soda was out of the vending machines. And so when they said he was assaulting the vending machines, he literally was assaulting the vending machines. And again, our fault, because he had never had unlimited access to some. We didn't know he was going to do that. So then for him, really truly at ETA, one of his biggest interventions was just a self-management system that says, for each break you get one thing from the vending and one from the drink. Fair? So a couple things that we've been finding too at the case conferences for Project Surge is really trying to use the case conferences as it's more of a training / questions / you're trying to build as much as you can in a very short period of time. The longest we ever had for case conferences was 15 minutes. Usually it was around 10 minutes because people are busy and they don't have a whole bunch of extra time. So we talked a lot about theory of mind. Marty talked to you a little bit this morning about PJ and how they kept saying how rude and disrespectful he was. No, he doesn't have theory of mind. That one seems to be a pattern that we hear quite often. And again, the stalking conversations, the social mistakes that are gonna get made, you've got to get that stuff on the table. You want it out there as quickly as you can. One of the things that we've been talking about is using some of the transition coordinators, the MRS, CMH, as the facilitators of some of these work-based conferences, case conferences, because we've got to shift what we're currently doing, because I don't know if you know this, but we're not getting any more money. And just as there's a huge stream of parapros, the same thing for job coaches, plus it doesn't work. If it worked, we'd have a lot more people employed. So here's Brian. Here was his work plan when he was at overtime. Brian had a lot of behavior that could go into crisis relatively quickly. And so Brian's work plan was a lot more specific than Marty's, because Marty really and truly didn't have any behavior plan. So we had to, there was like an overview of what his system looked like, and then we also kept some data to make sure he was doing okay. And then what, when the job coach was present, and what they needed to do. So like, it was very clear, like stay out of the kitchen. Don't go in there unless there's a problem, because if you're in there, then Brian's gonna find something else to do. Exactly how we're trying to explain exactly what he was supposed to be doing, who the people were, what he needed to do when he got there. He had a really hard time understanding when to get the dirty, when to bust the tables. So there was a chime system available, so he understood when he needed to go out and get the stuff. So once he heard the chime, he knew that was his time. So we built in some things that would help support him better understand what the expectations were in the workplace. And again, all his systems that were in place in order to keep him successful. We had to organize it by needs to be clean and finished. There was just a lot of things, because oftentimes he would get confused, and some of those things that needed to be cleaned were oftentimes put in the finish bin, so we had to keep making it very clear like where it belonged. So there was also a crisis plan that was in place, and it was just available. Brian's crisis plan included exiting the restaurant, going out behind, and they had painted this square back there, and that was where he took his break. The good news with Brian is he didn't care how cold it was, he didn't care if it was the winter, he would go out there because he knew it was a safe place for him to be, and he knew that he was fine once he got there. Questions? Okay. How about if we talk just a little bit at your tables about what your training might look like if you're in the K-12 system and you want to talk about the training to the peers within that. If you're having a kid going to work, I'd be very interested in what you guys come up with when you're going to go talk to those folks within the facility. You don't want to over-explain this stuff, but you don't want to leave so that there's so many questions. It's somewhere in a balance between those two. You want it specific enough that it makes sense, but you want it general enough so that they have a conceptual understanding of what we're trying to do. Questions? Okay, we'll come around and see how you guys are doing.